2 weeks ago, I want to say it was like January 11th, Thursday, January 11th, I met Trevor Noah in person for the first time. And this happened because I saw that he was going to be in Baltimore for 4 days during his comedy tour. And I live in Philadelphia. So something was like, why don't you just book the ticket? Just book the ticket and email his manager and say, you're going to be here at this time and you just want 10 minutes with Trevor. That's exactly what I did. Instantly, I get a reply and he's like, okay, be on standby. Let me talk to him. I was like, okay. I was on standby
Let me talk to him.
Right? I was on standby for a week. So then I email again. I was like, hey, just checking in. And then the day of the show, he emails me back and he's like, hey, I'm going to connect you to Trevor's tour manager. He's aware he's meeting you and have an amazing time. So I was like, wow, this is actually happening. So after the show, he takes me backstage to meet Trevor. And it's just me and Trevor and my friend that I came to the comedy show with. And we talked for 10 minutes. I shared with him what Ken Apparel was up to. And then he's like, we're going to make something happen this year. And I'm like, yes. And then we took a picture. It was beautiful. But it's also a testament to like creating your own opportunities. Like,
absolutely.
And yes, and be in the right place at the right time. He's gonna be he's on a comedy tour around you. Okay, well, you have 1 degree of separation, and that's his manager. So email his manager. What's the worst that can happen? He says no. Okay, but he said yes.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the More Rounds podcast. I'm Kim Lewis, CEO and co-founder of Chromix. And today, you guys, we have my girl, Philomina, from Naturally Philo, or Naturally Philo on YouTube if you watch, and Ken Apparel, but she was also on Shark Tank. Y'all, she's dope. Philo, I know because she used to like do tutorial reviews of like Chromix back in the day. Mm-hmm. And then I just been following her journey for a few years now, her entrepreneurial journey. And I'm just so impressed with what she's done, bootstrapping her business, how she was able to successfully go on Shark Tank and like really make a show, make an appearance for herself. And then navigate from going to Princeton University, working at her first startup, then building her own startup, and then now winning grant money and all kinds of things. So without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Philomina.
Yeah.
Before I get into that, we are both wearing Ken Apparel today, you guys.
Ken.
And let me just tell you, this satin line hoodie is phenomenal. It's like super soft. And y'all get this. It's satin in the pocket too. I put my hand in here like, oh, this so nice. What is this?
Oh, put your hand in here too.
Yeah. Oh, it's in the pockets? Mm-hmm. It's satin everywhere, but it's super comfy, y'all. And I put it on for this episode. And it's got like the loose area in the neck too. So if you got like a big head or big hair like me, it's easy to put it on. So
and the hood is huge.
It is. So definitely check it out. Hear me. Should I do the whole episode in my hood?
No. You want to see your curls?
Okay. Like how I mess up my hair. Awesome. But before we get started, we have to cheers. Okay. Cheers. So Philo, can you tell us about yourself and your background, how you got started, and then we'll get into funding later.
Yes. So about myself, I was born in the Bronx, New York, and 40 days later, my mom shipped me to Ghana, and
not you cargo, but okay,
not cargo. And I lived in Ghana with my grandmother for 5 years. So I was born into a divorce. My mom needed help, so she took me to Ghana, and that's where I lived with my family there. And she would visit, but because I was so young, I didn't know who she was. 5 years later, she brings me back to America to start kindergarten. And it's crazy because there's a lot of things I don't remember about that time, but I remember knocking on her door when I got to her apartment in the Bronx, and then she opened it, and I'm like, who is this? And she often recounts stories of me like crying all the time because I didn't know who she was, because I grew up thinking my grandmother was my mother. But eventually I softened up to her and acknowledged her as my mother. But that was the beginnings of my life. I lived in the Bronx until I went to college in Princeton. And that's really where my entrepreneurial journey began, but I didn't know it at the time. So You know how a lot of people say when a woman cuts their hair, they're about to change their whole life?
Yes.
That's really what happened to me. Like now looking back, I'm just like, wait, actually, that's what happened to me. So in 2013, I was a freshman at Princeton, and fast forward about like 5 months later in 2014, I told my late friend Ozzy to chop off all of my hair. So I went from this like long permed hair to a teeny weeny afro. And I did that because my hair was falling out in college. Like I was stressed and I wasn't taking care of it. So a little bit about my family background. My mom was a hairstylist, my grandmother, my aunts. I come from a family of hairstylists. So getting my hair done in the Bronx was easy and simple. They'll always do it for me.
Yeah.
So then when I went to college, I'm like, oh, it cost $100 to get a perm at Princeton. And I didn't have that money. So I chopped it all off. And when I tell you I was obsessed with healthy hair care after that, like I was watching every video, reading every book, trying every product. And it got to the point where I started my YouTube channel, Naturally Philo, where I wanted to document my hair journey. But soon after, it became a place where people were commenting, oh, you're inspiring me, you're motivating me to go on my healthy hair journey. And I'm just like, oh, this is bigger than what I expected it to be. Okay, let me lean into this even more. So a community was born, and that community became known as the kinfolk. So kin apparel derives from the kinfolk, but kin also is an acronym, and it stands for keep it natural. So it all just worked. Every time I will close out a YouTube video, I'll say, and until next time on Naturally Philo, keep it natural. And it just happened to work out that when I started my brand, I named it Kin Apparel.
So what made you go into apparel instead of hair care? So curious.
You know what's crazy, Kim?
What?
When I started my LLC, I named it Kin Hair Care. My LLC is not even named Kin Apparel. I actually always wanted to go into hair care. That was always my passion. But a satin line hoodie came about when I used to play rugby at Princeton. After I had cut off all of my hair, I always wore a scarf before trying to attempt to put my hood on. That never fit because it was so small. And it was just a thought to me. One day I'll just create a satin line hoodie. Yeah. Because I always had a scarf on my head. So I thought about that and just forgot about it. But in 2017 or 2018, actually, my YouTube channel was popping around that time. And
what's popping on YouTube?
Almost 200,000 followers.
Girl, that's more than just popping. Okay, you have some people's whole business be they 200,000 YouTube followers. I'm not being funny. I'm little facts. Okay, she's like, it was popping. You got your 200,000 YouTube followers. Okay, what is it now?
It's around there.
Okay,
yeah, it's around there. Because eventually I stopped making YouTube videos. We'll get into that, but it was just I didn't have the time. But an agency reached out and they said, hey, we want to collaborate with you on a hair care product. We see your audience loves you. And I'm like, oh, okay. But at the time I was working for a hair care startup. Yeah. So it was a conflict of interest to create a hair care product because any hair care product I would have made, I had already created with them, such as their Jamaican black castor oil growth serum. So I told them, I was like, hey, I can't do this, but can you make apparel? I always wanted to make satin line hoodies. Yeah. They came back to me a week after and they said, yeah, actually we can. So we collaborated and my first ever satin line hoodie was dropped for my YouTube audience January 18th of 2019.
Wow.
That was my first ever hoodie. So they paid for everything and then we split the profit and it was a 6-month contract.
So do you still work with them or no?
No. Okay. So after the 6 months, they shipped me whatever hoodies were left and the contract was over. And I just continued to promote the hoodies until they were sold out. And then in 2020, I felt like quitting my 9-to-5. In 2020, I had been there for 3 years. And at that point, I was like, you know what? Why do I keep giving all of my ideas to this company when maybe I should just like try doing this myself? Yeah. And that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. So April of 2020, I left my 9-to-5 to pursue Kin Apparel full time.
For many of you who don't know, I'm Kim, CEO and co-founder of Curl Mix, where we help you master your curls in 21 days. Curl Mix is what makes this podcast possible, and it helps you get the best wash and go ever. So if you like my hair when you're watching the show, that is what got it here. We are now available in Ulta, you guys. Yes, it is our first retailer ever, and it's doing amazing. And I would love your support if you would go out to Ulta and try Curl Mix. All right, you guys, now back to the episode. Now, I'm wearing this hoodie. This is thick, right? It's thick from the legs up to the hips. It's like, it feels double-sided. It's got different areas where there's satin on all the pockets. This is not cheap to make. How are you funding or getting the money to buy all this apparel before you go out and sell it?
Yeah, so in the beginning, there was no money to even buy all this inventory.
There was no money.
There was no money, but there was a community that was willing to trust and support. So I leveraged that with doing pre-orders. So we did pre-orders where you will buy the product, and the money I got from the pre-order was how I bought the product. So when the manufacturer finished making them and they ship it to me, that's when I ship it to customers. Whatever profit I made from that is what I'll buy my next collection with. And it kept on going until I got to a point where there was enough money in the bank to not do pre-orders anymore. And then got to the point where I was winning grants and getting loans from Shopify.
I have two questions. What do MOQs look like in the apparel industry?
It really depends. So in the beginning, I was buying like 100 hoodies for one color. I was buying, like, for example, my summer collection in 2020 was 500 black hoodies, but each of the satins were different. So you had like one with kente, one with blue, green, but now it looks like 1,000 per color. We not only sell hoodies, we sell hats now. So it also looks like 10,000 black beanies. So we really go by what color are people buying the most, and that's what we buy the most of.
And you mentioned that you got grants. So what kind of grants are you applying for, and have you received any?
Yeah, so my first ever grant I got from the ex-CEO of Schmidt's Natural. It's an all-natural deodorant.
Yeah. They were on Clubhouse, like, giving all kinds of advice during like the pandemic.
Oh, yes. And that's when I won it, during the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Jamie Schmitz and her husband. It was
Did you get to meet them?
No, we met via Zoom, but not in person.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was a $50,000 grant, and they called it the Entrepreneurial Fund of 2020. So I won that grant, and when I got that, I was like, all right, this is gonna fund my inventory. So I put money into inventory and money into digital marketing on Instagram, and that was my first grant. My second grant was $20,000 from Shea Moisture / Brown Girl Jane. They gave $20,000 to about 10 Black female founders. So that was the second one. Another $50,000 from the JVS Fund in Philadelphia. Another $25,000 from, what's that? I'm forgetting, but come back to me on that one.
Wow.
But yeah, I applied to a lot of grants.
How many grants are you applying for monthly?
So monthly, these days I don't apply to that many, because what I realize is I've gotten to the point where they're not giving me the money.
Oh, you're too big now.
Yeah, so I'm just like, dang. So now when I see like really big ones, that's when I apply. But before, Kim, I have a whole like folder on, and because a lot of grants ask the same questions, so along the way I was perfecting my answers.
Yeah.
So I was applying to like 10 grants a month, and there's so many Instagram pages and email listservs for you to sign up for that are always sending you grants. So like the New Voices Fund. Who else? Trying to remember.
And you were telling me about the New Voices program.
Yeah.
And you said you just did an accelerator with them. What were some of the things that you learned from doing that accelerator?
Yeah, so the New Voices Accelerator, it was the Madam CJ Walker PACE program. They do it annually. So I did it in 2022, and I learned a lot from them. It was like a 6-week program, and one big thing I took from it is a way to diversify my niche. So when I first started, like I said, the satin line hoodie was for hair care. I was starting my hair care journey and I needed to protect my hair. So this satin line hoodie was perfect for that, right? So that's how I was promoting the product and only marketing it like that for people that went natural and they're protecting their hair. But in New Voices, they really showed me that there are other people that need this product, and people can resonate with my story, but there's so many other stories out there. So for example, people with sensory sensitivities that love the calming nature and the feel of satin, or people with cancer, or people that just finished their chemotherapy medication and love how the satin feels on their hair as they nurture their hair back to life. So I'm just like, oh, wow, I never thought about this at all.
Yeah.
But it's just so beautiful to see like this one product. And some people think and sometimes it is really simple, like just putting satin in a hoodie. And you think that's so simple, but there's so many people that are so grateful and appreciate it so much because it makes them feel seen and heard. And it's not only the satin being in the hood, but we take it a step further, and like you said, the hoodie is thick. Like, all right, how can we get the best material? Let's make the hood big enough to actually fit the demographic we're marketing to, because our hair grows big and up. So let's make the hood big.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of these intricate details that really sells the product.
So you talked about, getting grants from Black Ambition and New Voices. One of the things I love about you, Philo, is that you are you really do hustle. And I think it's, people may not know that when they meet you, but you can see that you're showing up. Like I saw you just yesterday, a couple of days ago, in the snow with the coat that you just got. I don't know if you had a big fancy photo shoot, but that's the one that showed on my feed was you in this coat in the snow in your backyard or on the street or something like that. I'm like, this is so dope. And so now I'm thinking, okay, I didn't know you were applying for 10 grants a month. And then you ended up on Shark Tank. And people think I'm just going to apply to be on Shark Tank. The people who end up on Shark Tank typically are the hardest working people that you meet, or they selling snake oil. You know what I mean? Because they're entertaining.
You know what I mean? They got a good story.
Exactly, good story, right? But no, not a good business. Watching on YouTube, unfortunately, is not enough. If you've learned anything from my podcast, please, please, please leave me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I would be so appreciative, and you would help further the progress of this podcast. Now back to the episode. I would love to know of a time where you just dedicate yourself to making something happen and basically creating your own luck.
Okay. Trevor Noah.
Trevor Noah.
Let's talk about it.
Trevor Noah.
Yes. So 2020, during the pandemic, Trevor Noah was doing his daily show from his apartment. And every day on YouTube, he would wear a different color hoodie. And I'm watching this every day and I'm like, this guy loves hoodies. He has every single color. And I told myself, this is around the time I was now doing Kin Apparel full time. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get a Kin Apparel satin line hoodie to Trevor Noah one day. I just said it and forgot about it. And then fast forward 2021, we're putting in a purchase order for our thick hoodies. And I tell our manufacturer, hey, can you make 15 of them without the Kin logo? Because what I realized is on camera, they don't really wear logos. So I said, make the hoodies satin regular, but just don't put the Kin logo in the middle. And then so the hoodies came 15 different colors, and it was in a box in our office, and it sat there for months because I didn't know what his address was. Some people were telling me his address. I was like, I don't think this is the address. I was looking in Google. It said this is his address. I was like, I don't trust it. So it sat there until a week after Shark Tank. Trevor Noah makes a post on Instagram, and it's a picture of him in a regular hoodie, and his hair looks frizzy. And the caption was, note to self, never sleep in your hoodie or this would happen. When I saw that, I was like, no, this is my opportunity. So I quickly go on Kin Apparel's Instagram story and I film myself and I'm like, kinfolk, please go under Trevor Noah's recent post and tell him he needs a Kin Apparel hoodie. The community came through, bombarding the comment section with Kin Apparel, Kin Apparel, Kin Apparel, to the point where a woman that works in his building, the same building as him, DM'd me. And she was like, hey, I saw the comments. Actually, I work in the same building as him. If you send it to this address, I can get it to him. Mind you, I had known a lot of other addresses that I didn't trust, but something said, go with this one. I said, okay, God, this must be God. But so I printed the label, put a little note in there, and I shipped it to her. 2 weeks later, I get a DM from Trevor's manager, and he's like, hey, Trevor loves your hoodies. We would love to talk about a collaboration or see if we can do something. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Yo, like, Kim, that was one of my proudest moments.
Wow.
So, and at the time I was living in a townhouse where the top floor was where I lived and the bottom floor was the Kin Apparel office. And I rushed downstairs because it was me and my operations manager. I rushed downstairs. She was about to leave. And I was like, Alyssa, look at this message. She was like, Philo, we were both shaking. So then 2 weeks later, we get on a call with Trevor and his manager. It was like a 60-minute call. And Trevor is just going in. Like, he's like, I love it. I want to bring manufacturing to South Africa. Like, this is my favorite hoodie. And one thing that he said that was so beautiful, he was like, I love that this was intentionally made. It was never an afterthought. You went into the game making satin line hoodies. And I'm like, yes, he gets it. And then he was like, I want to know if I can invest. Like, what can we do? And I was like, this is all great. When I tell you, I was so excited. One thing, Kim, and sometimes people ask me, like, what is one moment in your entrepreneurial journey that you would have changed? And I would have changed what I'm about to tell you. So at the time, I was under contract with Shark Tank. Basically, it was like a non-compete, something that I had signed that said I can't talk to any other investors while this, like, document is still, while we're trying to, like, negotiate and sign off on this investment, right? And at the same time was when Trevor Noah was talking to us. So my lawyer was like, you can't talk about an investment right now. Let's finish off the Shark Tank one first. And I was like, okay, but the Shark Tank one took 9 months of back and forth. And eventually I didn't even go with the deal that y'all saw on TV. I went with something else and only went with Emma Greed as my investor. And on the show, it was 2 investors.
What happened on the show?
On the show, Emma Greed, who is the CEO of Good American and founding partner of Skims, she invested along with Lori Greener for, in total, 30% of Kin Apparel.
Okay.
And after the show, and you know, that's a handshake agreement that does not have to happen after due diligence. After the show, as I thought about it, as Trevor Noah was like in my ear, I was like, I don't think I want to give away 30% of my company. And I just feel like in the real world, would that even happen for $100,000?
Wait a minute.
Wait, $200,000. So 100,000.
And how much were you making at the time?
So when I went on Shark Tank, I had made $355,000 that year.
Oh my gosh! So they were trying to buy. You could at least got like a couple $1 million like valuation, you know?
Yes.
So they basically were giving you like less than $1 million valuation.
That's true. Yeah, they were giving me like $660,000 valuation, but it's also the nature of the show. It's kind of crazy.
That's true. They only give it's shark deals.
Yeah. So at the time, after that was closed, we went knocking on Trevor's door again, and it was around the same time he was leaving the Daily Show. Now he was taking a break from being on camera to basically travel the world. So his manager was like, I'll talk to him, but right now he's not really doing much. He's just traveling. He's on a break right now. So I was like, okay. So a lot of time passed, and I was speaking to, so Black Ambition sets you up with someone that helps you pitch, and her name is Anna. So I was speaking to her, and she was like, so who would you want to invest? And I was like, well, Trevor Noah. And then she was like, well, what was your last conversation? And I told her, and then she was like, no, you got to really go hard. Like, tell him, pitch something, like give him an offer. Tell him you're going to give him 10% of your company for this amount if he does this. So I was like, okay, let me try that. So I emailed Norm, and Norm was like, okay, let me get back to you. And I was like, oh, that kind of worked. All right.
That kind it works.
So let's continue doing this one. So the following week, I reach back out to Norm again. I tell him, hey, I'm about to pitch at Black Ambition. Pharrell is about to invest. Like, I really want to see what Trevor's trying to do. And then Norm was like, okay, let me talk to him. He really loves your hoodies. Let me talk to him. And it's always let me talk to him. But one thing about me is I don't take like silence as a no. Like sometimes people are just busy and they forget, because that happens to me a lot. So I'm like, nah, this doesn't mean no. Like, I'm pretty sure he's busy, and he is. He's on a nationwide, actually international comedy tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but God is good. And 2 weeks ago, I want to say it was like January 11th, Thursday, January 11th, I met Trevor Noah in person for the first time. And this happened because I saw that he was going to be in Baltimore for 4 days during his comedy tour. And I live in Philadelphia. So something was like, why don't you just book the ticket? Just book the ticket and email his manager and say, you're going to be here at this time and you just want 10 minutes with Trevor. That's exactly what I did. Instantly, I get a reply. And he's like, okay, be on standby. Let me talk to him. I was like, okay. I was on standby
Let me talk to him.
Right? I was on standby for a week. So then I email again. I was like, hey, just checking in. And then he was like,
I love you. You didn't email this man 20 times. And he was like, hey, just want to let you know. Just don't forget about me.
Right? So I'm like, hey, just checking in. And then the day of the show, he emails me back and he's like, hey, I'm going to connect you to Trevor's tour manager. He's aware he's meeting you, and have an amazing time. So I was like, wow, this is actually happening. So after the show, he takes me backstage to meet Trevor, and it's just me and Trevor and my friend that I came to the comedy show with. And we talked for 10 minutes. I shared with him what Ken Apparel is up to, and then he's like, we're going to make something happen this year. And I'm like, yes. And then we took a picture. It was beautiful, but it's also a testament to like creating your own opportunities. Like,
absolutely.
And be in the right place at the right time. He's gonna be he's on a comedy tour around you. Okay, well, you have 1 degree of separation, and that's his manager. So email his manager. What's the worst that can happen? He says no, okay. But he said yes. So I took that opportunity. And I think Trevor also noticed that, because it's like, the first time I spoke to you was November of 2021, and I'm still persistent. Like, this is gonna happen. So he's like, all right, I'll meet the girl.
All right. Go to stop sending emails.
Yeah, so yeah, Trevor Noah, we gonna make something happen this year.
I really believe that. That's an incredibly powerful story, Philo. Like, you can make your own luck. Mm-hmm. And I think people think that, some things just happen to certain people. And that's not true. Certain people are working to make sure things happen for them. They are working to make sure that they get lucky. That's such an incredible story. So in the deal with Immigrate, it ended up going through with just Immigrate, or did it not go through?
It went through with Emma.
Oh,
so Emma is my investor, actually.
Okay. On those same terms or different terms?
Different terms.
Okay, wonderful. So you raised several $100,000 from grant money. You've got an investment from Immigrate. And what's your future? What's the future of Ken Apparel? What are you like hoping to? How do you envision yourself?
Yeah. So this year I want to raise money. This year is going to be my seed round. I'm nervous and excited. So one thing I want to say is, when Ken Apparel started, and up until now, like, I've been using my likeness to sell the product, and talking about like not setting out to create a brand, but setting out to create a community, and having that community support you in starting your brand is really how Ken Apparel came about. And it's gotten to the point where, in order for me to scale, I need a huge injection of cash.
Yes,
especially because in the apparel business, you have to buy a lot of inventory ahead of time to have the time to market it and then sell it. Because if you buy as you sell, you always gonna run out of money. So right now I'm at the point where my team and I, we have all these great ideas, and we want to be able to fund our inventory without having cash flow problems.
Right.
So that's really why I'm raising this year to grow the team and to have money for inventory. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to getting out of my comfort zone. Some people meet me and they're like, I always thought you were like an extrovert. And I'm actually very quiet. Like, I love my personal space and love being alone. But people see me on YouTube and they're like, you're so loud. And I'm like, yeah, because there's a camera in front of my face. There's not people. But it's still my personality. It's just, as a Gemini, I waver.
Gotcha. Okay, so we got a lightning round. I got 3 quick questions. Favorite book that you think every entrepreneur should read?
Ooh, that's a good one. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it just helped. Did it help you do something?
Yeah. So I will say that it helped me realize that I can bet on myself, but I also need to have a plan. And in order to see my plans through, I really need to develop good habits. Mm-hmm. And it taught me about the time frame in which habits actually develop. Like, give yourself 30 days to do this. Give yourself 60 days to do this. And sometimes, like, we were jokingly saying that I went through heartbreak and then I lost weight and now I love the gym.
Yeah, that was an offline conversation. I was like, Philo, you look great. She was like, well, I lose 25 pounds every time I go through a breakup. I'm like, dang, okay.
Like, can someone break my heart tomorrow?
Girl, look.
But on a serious note, I love that book because it's really practical and it teaches you like very easy, like tangible ways to develop good habits.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Most money you ever lost on a deal? Or an investment?
Because I'm like, what deals?
I mean, you making YouTube videos, so you never lost any money like you did a creative project, you lost all the video, you lost all the sound. You ever like launched something that failed? Any thoughts?
Okay, that's a better question because I was like, the Shark Tank, I just went with one investor. So gotcha. I lost the other investor's money, which was okay. Yes. So I want to say I am not a designer. I'm an innovator. So I can make really dope products, but I need someone else to design them. So this happened in February of last year, where I was like, let me try designing a hoodie. So it was our Black History Month hoodie. It was a long black hoodie. And I was like, all right, it's going to be quarter zip. We're going to put the logo here and it's going to be green. And then we're going to make the satin green and we're going to have a green, red, and kente one. And when I tell you that collection flopped, because I was like, and then
I'm sorry.
And then looking back at it, I was like, yeah, why was the logo so huge? And why was the green so bright? And then afterwards, the team and I invested in a designing agency.
Rightfully so.
AJG, they're really, really good. Alice James Global.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, my last question. A myth you once believed about entrepreneurship that you no longer believe, and it can't be that you thought it was easy.
Okay. That I could do everything myself.
Oh, you thought you could just run the whole business?
I thought I could run the whole business to a point.
Okay.
And I want to say the startup that I first worked at, the only startup that I worked at, taught me a lot because I was its first hire. So I went through all the trials and tribulations with them and I just learned so much from them. And I realized that a team will be my greatest asset, but I didn't know when to actually hire that team. Is it when there's 5K in the bank, 10K in the bank? Like, what does an actual team look like? To me, it was like, 5 to 10 people is a team. But no, it's actually one other person plus me can really be a team. Mm-hmm. So I think the first time where I was like, you know what, Philo, it's time to hire someone was the day that I dropped my thick hoodies. It was 2021. It was February 2021, like February 5th. And Kim, I made $35K that day.
Wow.
And I had never seen that before. I was like, what? That's the day when I knew this was going to be something. And immediately I texted the girl at the time that was helping me pack orders. And I said, Alyssa, ever thought about being full-time? And then she didn't reply for a while. So I was like, dang, like, does she not want to be full-time? So then the next day she replied and she was like, Philo, this was the best news I have received in months. Like, I didn't reply because I was crying. I was like, really? And then she was like, yes. So I'm really good at marketing and she's good at logistics. So I was like, if there's one thing I know, I need someone to handle operations and I can handle marketing.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of, and after that we got on Gusto, and now it's like, all right, we have W-2s and all of that.
I'm sure that feels so good.
Right? I'm like, nah, this is a business now. So yeah, I mean, I think I always knew that I needed a team, but I think that day did it for me.
Gotcha. Philo, thank you for coming on the podcast. Where can we find you? Where can the folks follow you?
Yes, you can find me Naturally Philo on Instagram, CEO Philo on TikTok, because I'm starting to do a TikTok now. I'm like, I want to start doing day in the life of a CEO so people can follow my journey. And you can also find Kin Apparel at kinapparel.com or kinapparel_ on Instagram and TikTok.
Wonderful. All right, you guys, that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning to the More Rounds podcast, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.